Hello and welcome to Tap Into the Truth. We are still talking about the day after the deal. We've been discussing just some of the fallout from today, and we're just going to continue because there's just way too much stuff to go into for just 45 minutes. I mean, what do you want to do? You want to grade it? Or what grade would you give this thing? First of all, it's been a fake drama from the beginning. And, some people were cheering and applauding the fact that it's finally over, but it's not. It's not even over. Why? Because the sequester cuts have been pushed down the road. Nothing was accomplished here other than they saved some folks the increase of just letting all the Bush taxes expire. I mean, okay, let's talk about what happened. Washington reached a deal on the fiscal cliff. Republicans and Democrats managed to come together and decide that they should get a bigger slice of what the American people earn. Gee, what a surprise. Well, let's talk about the good news. There isn't any. Now, for the bad news. The top rate will increase to 39.6% for entrepreneurs, investors, small business owners, and other rich taxpayers making more than $400,000, $450,000 for married couples. This is Obama's big victory. He gets his class warfare trophy. The double tax on dividends and capital gains climbs from 15 to 20%. 23.8% if you include the Obamacare tax on investment income. The death tax rate is boosted from 35% to 40%, which doesn't sound like a big step in the wrong direction until you take back into consideration that in 2010 it was zero. The alternative minimum tax will still exist, though it will be patched to protect as many as 30 million households from being swept into this surreal parallel tax system that requires people to use a second method of calculating their taxes, with the government getting whichever one is bigger for their take. Unemployment benefits are extended, which kind of gives people more reason to be satisfied with joblessness. That really is a plus for the folks that are generally trying to find a job in this Obama economy. So I guess we might be able to move that into the good column for those folks, but for the folks that are still having to pay the bill, it's not so good. Medicare spending is increased as part of the doc fix to increase reimbursement payments for providers. This is basically just a late Christmas present, but it's to Obama and the so-called progressives that are getting it. The taxpayers of the country evidently are on the naughty list, and all they got was a big freaking lump of coal. Let's not delude ourselves. This is not a good deal for the economy because it doesn't do anything to cap the burden of government spending. It doesn't reform entitlement programs, and because they kicked the sequester provision down the road from the 2011 debt limit negotiations, we could even lose the cuts that would have been guaranteed there. I'm not happy with those particular cuts, especially in defense spending, but it would still be better than no cuts at all. We can't continue down this road of increasing spending without cutting where we're at, because we're already at deficit levels. There's no amount of taxation of tax-paying citizens that will cover the increases in spending. It won't even cover all of the spending and current debt we have now. It is insane to imagine that there is no level of safeguards currently instituted by our federal government to move towards a balanced budget. It doesn't make sense. Why can't we have a balanced budget amendment? Why don't we already have one? Why haven't the people who are supposed to be representing us stepped up and said, we're going to do what's best? We're not going to play around. We're not going to do stupid things. We're not going to waste millions and millions of dollars on little crappy stuff. We're going to go ahead and do the things that we should have been doing from the beginning. It doesn't make sense. But, it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't seem to matter to anybody that these people once again dropped the ball. And, just as a point of reference, I have heard a lot of folks complaining about the Hurricane Sandy relief effort. Here's the funny thing. Boehner took a big hit again. Wednesday morning early, lawmakers were lining up on the House floor to slam Boehner for delaying the vote on the relief package for Hurricane Sandy victims until the next Congress. Some Republicans were even vowing to vote against Boehner for the Speaker position over the matter. But by this afternoon, a lot of those same lawmakers were all smiles after leaving a meeting with Boehner and House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, who promised them votes as soon as Friday on the relief package. The House is now planning to hold 2 votes to get Sandy relief packages out the door. The first one on Friday morning will be for $9 billion for flood insurance. The second will be on January 15th, the first full day of business in the next Congress, and will include $51 billion to help rebuild the regions of New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut that were decimated by the hurricane in October. Put together, the bill equals $60 billion. But why the delay? Are they still working on the bill? Are they still looking to make amendments? Are they trying to take unnecessary things out of it? They were tired. They knew they had to play the drama of the fiscal cliff crapola. They had to play it out. And they were exhausted. Like any great actor after a great performance on Broadway, after you've given it all you've got and played your part perfectly, you sang, you danced, you did your little number, these people were exhausted. They didn't have time to go ahead and try to actually do something that would have been helpful. Now, I do understand why some members of the Republican Party, the most conservative members, may want to not send aid at all to the Hurricane Sandy relief effort, in so much as, in very real and uncompromising terms, it's not really, constitutionally speaking, the role of the federal government to offer this kind of aid. This is charity, and as such should be done through charity, through individual choice. But as a matter of decency and a matter of precedence, why on earth would you take the time to pass legislation that was so freaking moronic as the Senate's deal and not go ahead and at least do something positive while you're at it and help these people that have been abandoned by the government to this point in trying to get any kind of relief? I mean, In October, days after the hurricane hit, almost every so-called progressive that was in a elected position got up, patted themselves on the back, patted each other on the back, talked about what a great job they had done in providing relief and helping these folks out. And they got away with it to a larger extent because most of the folks who were hit hardest didn't even have a home left to be sitting in front of a television, didn't have electricity, didn't have cable, didn't have phone service, didn't have cellular service in a lot of these areas in those first few days because all the infrastructure was gone. So the people who were suffering weren't in a position to hear these blowhards tell the rest of the world what a great job they'd done, and they weren't in a position to go out and tell them themselves. Whether you do believe that the government should have already sent this relief, or whether you are so conservative as to say that the government should not be in the relief business, either way, it is still utterly ridiculous that the House would pass the Senate cliff deal and completely ignore Sandy relief efforts. Between the two, Sandy relief efforts should have been a higher priority, quite honestly. There are people that have been suffering since October. If the government's going to send the help, if they're going to go spend that money anyway, then that should have been a higher priority. Because this cliff deal is not good for the country. It doesn't do anything to address the problems that we have. And, the whole cliff scenario was propagated from the debt ceiling negotiations of over a year ago. So it was all fake to begin with. Seriously, what is going on that the press and the media, they're not calling them on this? The Senate released their report on the Benghazi investigation on Monday, knowing that the only thing in the news cycle was going to be the Senate trying to push a deal through, knowing that ordinarily the next few days, where they might have had a chance to get picked back up in the news cycle, would be dominated by what the House was going to do. For those of you who have not read it, there are links to the direct report up on Fox News and several other websites. I'm sure you can find it if you look for it. I've read through some of it, have not read through all of it at this point, but basically, they don't put the blame anywhere, but they keep saying there was plenty of blame to go around. Bottom line is, they don't want to talk about it. Hillary Clinton, through assuming no fault of her own, has suffered from the flu, from dehydration, from passing out from dehydration, getting a concussion,